The invitation arrived on a rainy Tuesday. It was wrapped in rice paper, delicate and thin. My name was painted on the front, each stroke a work of art. Inside, a single sentence written in elegant calligraphy. The village awaits your return. A shiver ran down my spine. What village? I had never left Tokyo. My apartment buzzed around me. The neon lights of the city pulsed outside my window, the city that never sleeps. I felt a million miles away from the quiet mystery of the invitation. A strange pull drew me in. This cryptic message from an unknown sender felt strangely important. I knew I had to go. The invitation mentioned a train station in the northern part of the city, a station I had never heard of. I searched online, finding nothing. This only deepened the mystery. I felt a knot of anticipation in my stomach. My logical mind screamed at me to throw the invitation away. Yet something deep inside urged me to follow its call. The next morning, the city felt different. The usual energy felt muted. Even the crowds seemed to part around me, as if I was already halfway gone. I navigated the crowded streets, a sea of faces and flashing lights. The air vibrated with the city's relentless rhythm. The smell of exhaust fumes filled my nostrils. Around me, everyone moved with purpose, their lives a stark contrast to the stillness I felt within. Each step took me further from the familiar, deeper into the unknown. Doubts crept into my mind. What was I doing? This was madness. But the invitation tucked safely in my pocket felt warm against my skin, like a beacon guiding me towards a forgotten shore. As I journeyed north, the cityscape began to change. Towering skyscrapers gave way to smaller buildings. The air felt cleaner, quieter. I felt the city's grip on me loosening. Finally, I reached the station. It was smaller than I expected, almost deserted. The air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, a stark contrast to the metallic tang of the city. I took a deep breath, my lungs filling with the clean, crisp air. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The city's anxieties seemed to melt away. The platform was empty except for an old woman selling steaming bowls of noodles. Her face was etched with time, her eyes filled with a wisdom that spoke of ancient things. I bought a bowl, the broth warming me from the inside out. She smiled knowingly at me. "The mountains hold many secrets," she whispered. As the train pulled away from the station, I felt a sense of finality. I was leaving behind the familiar, the comfortable, the known. Ahead of me lay only uncertainty. The rhythmic clatter of the train was the only sound. Each turn of the wheels carried me further from my old life, towards a destination I could only dimly imagine. The train journey was long and winding. The landscape outside my window transformed. Concrete gave way to lush green forests, towering skyscrapers replaced by majestic mountains. The air grew cooler, fresher. I could smell the earth, the trees, the promise of rain. As the sun began to set, the train pulled into a station. It was smaller than the last, barely more than a wooden platform. Stepping off the train, I felt a profound sense of peace. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the whisper of the wind through the trees. The village was nestled in the valley below, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. It seemed to rise from the forest floor, a tapestry of wooden houses and winding paths. Time seemed to move differently here, slower, more deliberate. Section 5. The Heart of the Ancestors. The villagers welcomed me with open arms. Their faces were weathered by the sun and the wind. Their eyes held a deep kindness. They spoke in hushed tones, their words filled with respect. Respect for the past, for tradition, for the spirits that watched over them. They spoke of the heart of the ancestors, a sacred place deep in the surrounding forest. a place where the veil between this world and the next was thin, where the spirits of their ancestors could be heard whispering on the wind. They believed that visiting this place would grant me clarity, that it would help me understand why I had been called here. That night, they held a feast in my honor. The food was simple but delicious: rice, fish, vegetables grown in their gardens. As we ate, they told me stories of their ancestors, of the spirits that protected them, of the ancient rituals that bound them to this land. Section 6. The Kitsune's Guidance. The next morning, I set out to find the heart of the ancestors. Following a path that wound through bamboo groves and across moss-covered bridges, the air was filled with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, creating a mosaic of light and shadow. As I walked, I felt a presence beside me. A flash of white fur caught my eye. A fox, its coat as white as snow, its eyes intelligent and knowing. It watched me for a moment, then turned and disappeared into the undergrowth. I followed, drawn by an invisible thread. The fox led me deeper into the forest. The path grew fainter, the trees thicker. The air grew still and heavy, as if I had entered a sacred space. I felt a sense of anticipation, as if I was on the verge of discovering something profound. Finally, we arrived at a clearing. In the center stood an ancient shrine. Its wooden pillars were weathered and worn, but it still radiated a sense of power. The air crackled with energy. I could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful, something that sent shivers down my spine. The fox sat patiently at the base of the shrine, its tail curled around its paws. It watched me with those knowing eyes, as if it understood my purpose here, as if it had been waiting for me. I approached the shrine slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on me, the weight of history, of tradition, of the countless souls who had stood in this place before me. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. As I stood before the shrine, a vision filled my mind. I saw the village as it once was, vibrant and alive. I saw people working in the fields, children playing in the streets, families gathering for meals. I heard laughter, music, the murmur of conversation. The vision shifted and I saw a young woman. Her face was filled with sorrow. She stood before the shrine, her head bowed in prayer. I knew instinctively that she was my ancestor. I could feel her pain, her longing, her deep connection to this place. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the vision faded. I opened my eyes, my heart filled with a strange mix of sadness and peace. I understood now why I had been called here. I was meant to remember, to honor the past, to carry the spirit of the village with me. I spent the next few days exploring the village and its surroundings. I learned about the villagers' customs and traditions. I listened to their stories, their hopes, their fears. I felt a deep connection to this place, to these people. It was as if I had come home after a long absence. One evening, as I sat by the river watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, I realized something profound. I wasn't just connected to the village's past. I was a part of its present and its future. The villagers had welcomed me into their community. They had shared their stories, their lives, their hearts with me. The invitation, I realized, had not been a summons. It had been a gift, a chance to reconnect with a part of myself I never knew existed. A chance to find peace in a world that had forgotten how to be still. When it was time for me to leave, I felt a pang of sadness. But I knew that I would never truly be apart from this place. The village and its people would always be a part of me. As I boarded the train, I looked back at the village, nestled peacefully in the valley. The setting sun cast long shadows across the rice paddies, painting the landscape in hues of orange and purple. The journey back to Tokyo seemed shorter this time. The city welcomed me back with its familiar chaos. The noise, the crowds, the relentless pace of life. But something had changed within me. I carried the peace of the village in my heart, a peace that no amount of city noise could drown out. The experience had changed me. I was no longer just a resident of Tokyo. I was a keeper of memories, a bridge between the past and the present. And I knew that I would return to the village someday, to pay my respects to the ancestors, to wander the forest paths, to listen to the whispers on the wind.